some reunions that happen. Look at this. This is so nice. Wide receiver on one side, quarterback, and then they're back together. That happens. Some college quarterbacks and wide receivers rejoining in the draft. Todd McShay joining us here, our ESPN senior draft analyst. Let's start with some of these reunions, Todd, and tell us about Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise for some people. I know Penei Sewell was really slotted to Cincinnati, that number 5 spot. But I think Joe Burrow had something to do with this pick for the Bengals. He must have said, hey, listen, look at what we did with Ja'Marr Chase, the wide receiver at LSU 2 years ago, set single-season records in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Bring this guy back in. Find somebody else to protect me very quickly. But Ja'Marr Chase is going to be a star in that offensive system, and he's thrilled to be back with Joe Burrow. Then right after that, at pick 6, we had Tua Tagovailoa getting reunited with Jalen Waddle. Again, some people thought it could be Devontae Smith, who's coming off the Heisman season, one of the best seasons in the history of college football for the wide receiver position. But Waddle is just more explosive, and I think he's going to be a perfect fit for Tua. The RPO game that they like to run and what they like to do, get him the ball in his hands, whether it's vertically or in that short game, and let him go create. He's dynamic. I think the most dynamic playmaker in this entire class when it comes to receivers with the ball in their hands. Then after that, Jalen Hurts. Was it Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith get reunited as well? Yeah, so Philly moved around a lot. They moved around pre-draft. They moved up during the draft. They get up to 10 and get Devontae Smith, who's just so silky smooth, and he's such a great route runner. That's going to help Jalen Hurts in his development there in Philadelphia. And then finally, and we probably should have started with this one, you've got Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 overall pick with Jacksonville, and then they go back, and I know, talking to Urban Meyer leading up, that one of the guys on the short list that he wanted was Travis Etienne, the running back. Not just because he's such an explosive runner, but also they feel like they can move him around, and the former Clemson teammates are now back together. I think Etienne, you can move him in the slot, you can move him out wide. He's going to play a big part in that offense, not just carrying the ball, but also as a receiver.
Yeah, Todd, the Jaguars also said they were a little bummed they missed out on Kadarius Toney, the do-it-all wide receiver out of Florida, but they did get Travis Etienne. All right, Marcus, you see these reunions. Which one is most important?
Hell, Boogie, you know damn well I'm going with Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow.
I did know.
That was a layup. Listen, I understand the thought process behind getting an offensive lineman, and I was in that same vein. But if you're not going to go O-line, reunite 2 players that were absolutely dynamic and change really the fortunes of LSU football had a lot to do with that. But also you see the rapport, and I've heard Dan say it a million times. These guys see things the same way. But with that being said, you needed a 1. Look, A.J. Green was fizzling out, but the bottom line was A.J. Green was the guy in Cincinnati for a long time. Now Cincinnati has went out and got their number 1 receiver to couple with their number 1 quarterback, and then you continue to build from there. I like what Cincinnati has from an offensive standpoint. Offensive line shows that they are better in protecting. This team may be dangerous offensively.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it worked so well at LSU between those guys is because they finally upgraded their talent level that they recruited. It's the most important reunion for sure because of the reason that you did pass on those offensive linemen. I got you. You know, you passed on 2 offensive linemen, one in Penei Sewell, who I've heard people say is a surefire Hall of Famer, and then one with Rashawn Slater that people are saying at worst is an all-pro guard. So you've passed on 2 primary positions to go get a guy that, and Marcus, you're right, they had a great rapport. Remember doing the national title game 2 years ago and just walking away going, they just see things the same way. And I remember, playing with Calvin Johnson when he was young, and it just took time to figure out the little things, like, oh, Calvin's covered, but he's not. I'll trust that I can throw him the ball. Or playing with Andre Johnson and just realizing like Andre, was so big at the top of his route separating. So you had to get a comfort level with that. Joe already has that with Ja'Marr Chase. Or playing with a Reggie Wayne and understanding that Reggie slow played everything and that just took time. Those guys, it's like, I'm a dad of multiples. I've got triplet sons. Like, they've got these languages that you don't understand, but they do. That's Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase. They do have that kind of unwritten language that they understand each other. So it's hugely important. I think there's a lot of pressure on it to work out as well.
Me and Laura have that unspoken language, so I understand how that works.
Don't get me started with that.
I'm going to go in a different direction. I think the most important reunion is actually between Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle, because I think Tua's future in Miami depends on it. And I know that sounds dramatic, but hear me out. The most important thing for the Dolphins offense, for the Dolphins football team this year, is getting Tua to be more aggressive, pushing the ball downfield. Last year, he ranked 30th in yards per attempt between Alex Smith and Ben Roethlisberger. That needs to change. They went out this offseason, and between Jalen Waddle and Will Fuller, who they signed in free agency, they got Tua a track team. So they're hoping to do, I think what Las Vegas did, frankly, with Henry Ruggs and Nelson Aguilar last year, which is kind of coax a conservative quarterback to take more risks. Because Tua can throw the ball beautifully downfield. He just won't sometimes. If they can do that, this will be a great success. If not, we might be having a conversation next year about the quarterback in Miami.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting, too, that you say coax him to take some of those risks. It's something that he did at times instinctually in college, but we haven't had a large sample size of that in the NFL. All right, coming up on NFL Live, we got more to get to. How did the Ravens fare in the draft? One person said